Welcome. This is Nina Hayton.
And this is Avis Carter.
Welcome to FashAZON, where we showcase up-and-coming designers. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We really appreciate you. We have a special guest, and she is wired. Welcome, Frances Webb. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being in here. You know, you are in design. Tell me, how did you get started?
How I got started in design, I'm a daddy's girl, and my father was a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And he would bring the newspapers home from Boeing and Lockheed, and I would read those newspapers, and I could just vision myself at those companies. So that's how I got into design engineering, following my father.
Wow.
And so even with following your father, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, because you mentioned engineering, and are you an engineer?
I am no longer an engineer by trade. I am a design engineer. I used to design interiors for both private and commercial jets.
Whoa.
And how easy or how hard was that? And how did you get into that business of designing, taking flight, Boeing?
Wow.
Tell me about that.
My first love was architecture, and it was hard for me to land a position in architecture because I wanted to go to school and learn the trade as I was acquiring education. And it was hard to do, to go into architecture. So I started looking at aircraft. It was much more lucrative.
Well, why was it hard to go in architecture? Because the men usually do it, or, why?
Well, both the fields are really dominated by males,
Yes.
but in architecture, you have to really know somebody in the field. It's a very close-knit field.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
That's why.
And so even when you acquire all of this knowledge, what school did you attend?
I went to a National Education Center.
Okay.
That's when computer-aided drafting first came out, and I just had to pick that skill up. And once I picked the skill up, I was just off and running.
You had to pick the skill up.
I had to pick the skill
And what
up.
make you have to pick the skill up?
Because I was just fascinated. Drafting on a machine, I was just fascinated. So I was first generation computer-aided drafting.
Okay, nice. Wow. And so now tell me a little bit about all of this wire, because girl, ain't nobody wired like you. And usually, tell me about it.
I started bending copper wire. I had invited Dr. Lean Bay to come and speak. And I wanted him to really touch on the divine masculine and feminine energy. And his wife, she does copper jewelry. She says, "Have you ever thought about doing copper jewelry?" And I'm like, I never thought about doing copper jewelry. She goes, "Once you do it, you're gonna be hooked."
Okay.
And I was. I got a couple of the tools, and then I started bending wire, and I started going back into my childhood and remembering a Crystal City to my parents' house in Seattle, and I'm hooked. I'm just hooked.
Yes.
And so out of all of the metal, out of all of the material that you can use, why copper?
Because copper is the base element. It's on the periodic table. It's element number 29. Everything that is planted in the ground has copper in it. Copper is antimicrobial. Copper is antibacterial. I just love copper.
Nice. Wow. And it looks beautiful
Thank
on
you.
you.
Look at these
Thank
pieces you have on.
Anytime I'm doing something where I'm doing a bunch of circles, I think about, have you guys ever heard of Henrietta Leaks?
Briefly.
She was an African-American woman, and she went to, it was a medical center in Baltimore, I want to say. And she had a cancerous uterus, and she could feel it.
Okay.
And so they took a biopsy of her uterus. And from there, they're called HeLa cells.
Okay.
And they noticed that the cells would grow. They put them in another petri dish, and they just kept growing and growing and growing. With her cells, they have found cures to diseases like cancer, all kind of cures.
Okay.
So whenever I do something like this, I'm thinking about the immortal cells of Henrietta Leaks.
Oh, wow. How precious is that?
Yes.
And so, what did your mom pour into your life?
My mom?
Yes.
My mom was all about fashion and flair,
My mom
Yeah,
was
I
like,
mean,
yeah.
the girdle, the right attire, the colors. She was
Yeah.
always about coordination. My mother gave me style. I would have to
Wow.
say that. My mother gave me style.
Wait, and you
That's
talking
awesome.
girdle. You're not
Awesome.
supposed to talk underneath the dress, right?
She would press our hair for Easter.
Right.
I mean, she gave us style.
Right.
And did
I
she
agree
press
with
your
you.
hair? That's what I want to know.
Yes, she did.
And did she like pop you and say, "Don't move"?
You had that wooden spoon
Do you
to hold the
remember
ear down.
Oh,
So,
girl.
yes,
I
yes,
remember
yes.
those days.
Yes.
And then girl used to be like, "Ouch!" And then she'd say, "Don't
You
move."
don't move, and she's getting real. That heat is getting real close to your ear, and you're just like,
Right.
and you're trying to hold still.
Yeah.
But thank God I'm natural now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank God I'm
It's
natural.
beautiful.
And so even with being natural, and natural beauty, and so do you feel that if you were still in the industry of designing for Bowen, that you could feel good about wearing natural?
I would.
Okay.
I would still rock my natural hair.
And you say rock?
Rock. I say rock. Rock
Right,
your natural
right.
hair.
So, Frances, your upbringing, what part of the world are you from?
I am from Seattle, Washington, where it never stops raining, the Evergreen City.
Oh, so that is true.
Yes, it is.
I guess you got to live there to know it, right?
You do, but the rain in Seattle is different. It's like a misty rain. The rain in Texas is like a hard, piercing rain. You can get out and move around the rain in Seattle, but Texas, you kind of want to stay in until it lightens up. There's a difference.
Right.
There's a difference.
I met Frances at a vendoring opportunity here
Yes, you
in
did.
Dallas. But Dallas
African American Museum.
Yes, and I saw these beautiful pieces, and I was like, "Oh my God, do you make those?" She's like, "Yes, I design these." So I fell in love with looking at her pieces and talking with her. So
Thank you.
it's very
Thank you.
interesting.
And so let's go a little bit deeper. And
Yeah.
so it hasn't always been, easy for you, I'm sure.
It hasn't.
And so tell me, how do you overcome tragedy? Have you ever had any tragedies in your life, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest tragedy, and I wouldn't say it was a tragedy.
Okay.
Just working in an all-male dominated field.
Okay.
There's a heaviness in the environment.
Yes.
And then being an African American woman raising children as a single parent, we get our cues from society. Society always tells us to be strong.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think strength is a characteristic that should be compared with men, not women. And so Purple is Jewelry is all about us finding the balance between the masculine and the feminine, because everybody is both. You're both masculine and feminine, but we are, I don't know, we're just cued to be more masculine, be more assertive, the soldiers, the ride or die, the fighters. And I don't rock with that. I think we should rest in our femininity.
And even with resting in our femininity, it's like there's no man in the house. So it's nothing for us to go and get a hammer and fix something. Spackle.
Yes,
Before I
right.
left, I was spackling walls and painting.
Yeah.
And
Wow,
so
I didn't know
how
that.
do you find rest, right? When you got stuff to do and there's no man there.
That's a good question. You have to fix what you have to fix, right?
Right, right.
Yes.
But we're designed different than
Absolutely.
males.
Yes.
We are receivers, not givers. And we've been taught to just give, and we can't. That's why, one of the reasons that I am really propelled with Purple is Jewelry is
Yes.
helping women find that feminine side that's dormant in them.
Okay.
Wow.
So if you put something on that's pretty,
Yes.
you're more likely to think,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. You
Right,
feel pretty.
right.
You walk
Mhm,
different. You
feel
talk
pretty.
different. It's just.
You're not strong.
Yes.
You're not a community warrior. You're just resting in your femininity.
How beautiful.
And that's like a different look, because for me it's like I gotta be strong, because it's like there is no man around, and when something needs to get done, I'm either paying for it or I'm doing it myself. And so, you know that saying, if I don't do it, it won't get done, you know?
Right,
And
yes.
so finding balance. So how can you encourage us to, I know I understand you're supposed to look pretty. I understand all of that. But you're saying I should be like more reserved in my femininity, right? But I can be cute and put and hammer something. So
Yeah.
give me some guidance on that. Give us some wisdom.
One thing that I had to do is I had to go within myself and find out, why am I so masculine?
Oh,
And
yes.
in finding that, I learned about chakras.
Okay.
And chakras are 7 major centers of electricity that we have in our body, and it's a centrifugal force.
Wow.
So I had to find that out. And just looking at stones and crystals, that is something that's more feminine than masculine.
Yes.
So I would have to say, just putting my hands on copper and learning about different stones, forgiving myself,
Yes.
learning
Yeah.
how to be feminine, doing feminine things, communing with nature, getting out walking in nature. It was all a
Yes.
part of the piece where I began to be less masculine and more feminine.
You know what? I can
Yeah.
see that. I can really see that. I have saws in my house. You know, I have paintbrushes.
Wow.
I have a lot of masculine things.
Really?
Because you know that saying, I could be the man in my house.
But you know the
That's
saying,
right.
Mother Nature, and
Yes.
Mother Nature is giving. She's nurturing.
Yeah. And so words of wisdom to us, like if you had any final remarks of what you can tell me to be more feminine and put that hammer down. Not like John Henry.
No more Bob the Builders.
Yeah.
Right,
If
right.
I can do it coming from an engineering background, you can.
Okay.
I would suggest just getting out in nature, just communing with nature. Just watch nature.
Okay.
Look at the leaves.
Yes.
Look at Mother
Beautiful.
Nature. Just knowing that copper, Mother Nature gives everything that's planted in the ground copper.
That's deep.
And copper is so healing. When you
Yes.
think about when you're in your mother's womb, she's always nurturing you. She's giving. You're hosting her. She's hosting you. You're living off of her.
Yes.
So I think of nature as feminine.
That's deep. And it's so deep that you said it came from the
Mother
Mother
Earth.
Earth. So that's
Yeah.
deep. That's real deep.
Right. Well, what I want to know is, where can we find you? How can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram under Purpleless Jewelry, or you can find me on my website at www.purplelessjewelry.com.
Frances, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the interview.
Thank you. Remember, we can change the fabric of our journey with one stitch and one step at a time. Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And so, girls, you know that is really deep. I kid you not. Because, you know, welcome. This is Nina Hayden.
And this is Avis Carter.
We are FashAZON, where we showcase up-and-coming designers. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Today, we have an amazing designer on with us. Her name is Dawn Franklin. Welcome, Dawn
Welcome,
Franklin.
Dawn.
Thank you. Thank
Hey.
you.
Tell me, how did you get started?
I started designing jewelry back in 2005. I can't say that it was necessarily something that I've always wanted to do, but I found myself looking for a way to express my creativity.
Okay, and so I know that you once was a social worker, and so tell me about that, and then we'll go back to jewelry, and tell me how that flows, like a timeline.
Okay. Started undergrad looking for a degree that, according to my parents, I could feed myself with. And it
Yes.
was not art.
So they say.
So I decided on social work. I have always enjoyed working with people, and one of my purposes here on this earth and this journey is just to serve. And social work allowed me to do that. And I did that for 18 years until the fall of 2018 when I retired myself. I've always been creative as a child. I love to draw and paint and write. Jewelry just became one way for me to express that. And that started in 2005.
So you retired your own self?
Yes.
You retired
Yes, yes. Social work was never, it wasn't depressing. A lot of people would ask me that, but it was definitely exhaustive. And, you're in the lives of people on a daily basis, and most of the time, not at good times in their lives, when they were in a crisis, and helping them get out of that crisis. And I was still designing on the side. I guess you could call it my side hustle. But after a long period of time, it really wasn't allowing, my social work career really wasn't allowing for me to have a lot of energy left for me.
Yes.
And after 18 years, I just decided that it was time. So I phased myself out. I started working part-time for about the last 4 years of my career, and I just kind of phased myself out of the social work career altogether.
Well, that's great. You had the opportunity to do that.
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, lots of ladies would love to phase themselves out and do what they really love and have, they're passionate about. So,
Exactly.
And, and so when I look at you, I see where we are right here, Miss Texas, right?
Yes.
And so even with your upbringing, what did your parents instill in you?
Just a great work ethic. I'll say that just in watching them as they went to work every day and how important that was. And to be me. One of the things that they often encouraged just was to be myself and in anything that I wanted to try or anything that I wanted to pursue. And I spent a great deal of time, too, with my grandparents. So my grandparents, my grandmother specifically, had a great impact and influence on my creativity. She was a very stylish and creative woman. And she enjoyed, I always say she gave me my voice as a child at the age of 10. And she just allowed me to be expressive and to feel what I was feeling I was a tomboy, so she allowed me to be a tomboy and to hang out with my boy cousins, and because I was the only girl. And so it was just that, the work ethic, be yourself, allowed me to be creative, allowed me to be expressive and to feel the things that I was feeling and to communicate that. So I appreciate my parents and my grandparents, who are, my ancestors now for all that they did. And
so did you grow up here in Texas? Are you a Texan?
Dallas is home for me. And I've always enjoyed living here and been okay living here. I'll say that. My attitude is as long as I can travel and experience other parts of this country and other parts of the world, and Dallas is good for home.
So you said other parts of the country or other parts of the world?
Both.
Okay, so where have you been? And when you tell me where you've been, tell me, have you bought anything or picked up anyone's fashion as far as jewelry goes?
Well, definitely. Ironically, this time last year, I was in Ghana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first time in Ghana, first time on the continent.
Yes.
It was a beautiful experience, a little stressful because we were all, on the cusp of the pandemic right before everything shut down.
Right.
And thankfully, I was able to get home and get back to the States before the world shut down. But being there was an amazing experience. The culture, the people, the sounds, all of your senses, or all of my senses were heightened. So from the food, I was there and I was able to pick up trade beads, which is part of my collection because I use African trade beads as well as semi-precious gemstones and other organic elements like woods and things like that. But I was able to meet with vendors to pick those beads, to select them myself, which was amazing because usually I just shop with vendors online.
Yes.
But I was there. So it was a great experience and I can't wait to get back.
Yeah.
And so when are you going back?
Well,
When's
hopefully,
the go? Right.
2021, 2021,
Okay,
maybe
well,
the fall
take
of
us-
this year or next year,
Right. Let's go,
as the
Amos.
world gradually opens up and allows us to travel with some comfort. I can't wait to get back to Ghana.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And so even thinking about shopping, right? I've traveled as well, the world. And so even when thinking about your beads and going to Ghana, because I heard that the prices for beads in Ghana is like in fabric and all of that is so different. But we can hear it from not the horse's mouth, but we can hear it from your mouth. Tell us or compare the prices that you pay in Ghana and how much they mark it up, if so,
Right.
in the States.
It was worth the trip. It is
Okay.
definitely a big difference when you talk about, I guess you can put it in context of, or wholesale, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes.
So it's a huge difference in pricing. What I appreciated was just an opportunity to contribute to their economy and to the individuals, because they're huge markets. So you have individuals there that are, selling these trade beads and supporting themselves
Right.
and their families. And I was able to pick up pieces there that were very unique
Of
and
course.
looking
Yes.
for what I wanted. Because the other
Right.
thing about shopping with vendors is when I'm here in the States, I can only buy what they have.
Yes.
Yes.
And so there I'm able to make that selection for myself. And of course, the price markup was greatly different. So I was able to purchase things in Ghana that were much more reasonable for me, which allows I think my jewelry to be affordable, to be attainable and
Yes.
reachable. Because I believe in looking beautiful and looking and feeling luxurious and rich without necessarily having to pay the price for that.
Well, we see today. You
So
look
that's
all
really
of that.
important. Yeah, I want it to be accessible to all women and men, because the jewelry line is for women and men.
And so even with jewelry, it's like, have you ever gone to jewelry school or does it just come innate?
No, I took a few classes in 2005, just the basics of learning how to, put things together, so to
Yes.
speak. But everything else is truly, as you say, innate. It's just me, whatever inspires me, from color to texture to
Yes.
sound. You just never know what's going to be inspirational. And I often tell people, I just like the beads and the stones speak to me. I know that sounds
Okay.
a little,
No,
a little
that's-
crazy, but
Understand.
that's what I allow them to do, And I use semi-precious gemstones, but not all the semi-precious gemstones.
Okay.
So I select those that they all are spiritual in a sense. Not in a sense they are, because they are given to us from the earth. So, but I typically use the same, I find myself using the same types of gemstones and putting those together with the African trade beads to create the design that I want to create. And I enjoy designing what I like, and my prayer is always that someone else or that others will appreciate it and like it too.
So what line do you have for the men?
I hesitate because with the jewelry itself, I think it can be worn by a man or a woman.
Okay.
Some things I will specifically design for a woman in mind, or
Yes.
women in mind, or for men in mind. But most of the pieces are pretty unisex, and
That's
I
great.
find sometimes the men need a little bit of coaching, and I think that has to do with the fact that the jewelry is designed by a woman, is designed by
Yes.
me. So our frame of thought is that it must just be for women, or this
Yes.
necklace must be for a woman, when it can be worn by both.
And so you made mention that, this is like from the earth. And so give me your favorite stone or gem.
Quartz.
Quartz.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Oh,
enjoy.
like quartz?
Yeah.
You got time? Do you have time, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy working with quartz.
Okay,
It's,
tell me.
it's your grounding stone when it comes to your energy, when it comes to your chakras. It's your grounding and balancing stone. So I enjoy working with that gemstone in particular. And there's so many different varieties of it that can be used. And with most of the gemstones that I select, I really enjoy using more natural cuts as opposed to the faceted or man-made cuts and smooth cuts. It just adds a lot more texture and interest to each of the designs.
And so are you wearing your pieces that you've made?
I am. I'm wearing just a few bracelets today, and then I have on a necklace that I've designed, and I have a new collection that we'll be launching within the next month. And it was inspired by my trip to Ghana, as a matter of fact.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it's called the Abena collection.
The Abena?
Abena.
And what does that
Abena.
mean, girl? Help me out.
Well, actually, while I was there, I learned that my birth name is Abena.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
you.
Cool. Oh, good. You're
Yeah.
lying. So you're on
Exactly.
And so
Wow.
it's Abena.
Abena, Abena, Abena.
Abena.
So that is my birth name, which is the day of the week that I was born on. So I thought that that would be a great, a great way to express myself as well as to remember my trip to Ghana.
And so, words of wisdom, while we're like talking and wrapping up, give us some words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom, just be intentional about life and about choices. Be thoughtful, be kind.
Yes.
Just be true to self and to make the best decisions that you can and to be obedient in your walk and in your journey.
Obedient to who?
Obedient to God.
Oh,
always.
okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
very good.
Yeah.
Just being
So,
obedient.
great. Thank you. So, can you tell us how people can find you?
Definitely. I am on most of the major social media platforms. The platform that I hang out on the most, though, is Instagram.
Okay.
So that's Dawn Franklin Designs on Instagram. And then my website is www.dawnfranklindesigns.com.
Well, thank you, Dawn. It's
Thank
been a
you,
pleasure.
ladies.
You've
I've
been here with
enjoyed
us.
it.
We thank you so much for joining
Well,
us.
thank you for having me.
Yes.
You are so precious. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can change the fabric of your journey with one stitch and one step at a time. Bye-bye.
Bye.